Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I apologize in advance. Some cars might go by. I'm actually just kind of right below the road, but I'm up in Angeles National Forest today, doing a little bit of hiking, and I figured it would be a fun time to do kind of an update on just the Spydercos in my collection. There are a couple knives here that have been in it for a long time. There's a couple that definitely will be in it for a long time moving forward. And there's some that may change eventually, but for right now, I'm really happy with the Spydercos that I own. So I figure I'll go kind of in order of smallest to largest, and I'll talk about each of these guys, why I love them, why I have them, what my plans are for them, etc. And yeah, so let's kind of jump right into it. First one is my Maxima Para 3. You might notice I put some black hardware on this guy. I did that just... goodness, that was probably like 2 weeks ago. I got the idea from Thomas Moore, who did this on a couple of his knives. I think he even did one with gray scales like this. And so I reached out to Blades We Love and got a set of takeoff black hardware lanyard tube. And I already had a black Lynch deep carry clip. Now, the bummer is that when I was installing this hardware, there's a reason you never saw the video of it. It went terribly wrong. It was just, it did not go well. Getting the factory lanyard tube out was a bigger pain than I've ever had on a Spyderco. And I ended up chipping the G10 just a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but just right there on the butt of the knife. So because of that, I went ahead and I finally did something that I've been meaning to do for a long time for this Para 3. And I got a set of replacement scales. Since I chipped this one, why not, right? And so I've got a set of blue jean micarta scales, and to go with them, I realized I didn't want to deal with another press fit lanyard tube. So I ordered a set of Flytanium hardware in bronze, which I think is going to look cool with the blue jeans and the satin blade. So we'll see how it all turns out. That hardware is actually out for delivery today, and the scales have already arrived. So hopefully tonight I'll be disassembling and reassembling this knife with micarta and new hardware. And then I'll have to figure out what I want to put this black hardware on, because I won't have much use for it. But we'll see how that goes. Anyways, the Maxima Para 3 is my forever Para 3. It's just, in my opinion, for the Para 3, the best blade steel that is offered on it, has been offered on it, and arguably one of the best blade steels in existence anyways. I haven't had any issues with corrosion. I haven't tried to get this to patina or anything, but I haven't had any, no corrosion at all. And I have used this knife a ton. I've never had to sharpen it, strop it, anything. It's just, Maxima is an incredible, incredible steel. So I really love this guy. I've loved the gray G10 and the way it came from factory, frankly, but I've had it for long enough that it's just, it'll be fun to keep it spicy. So there is the Maxima Para 3. This is actually the Spyderco that, believe it or not, I've had in my existing collection the longest. Was this my first Spyderco? No, but for some reason, the Yojimbo 2 has stuck around. This one is wearing some Putnam blade scales. Putnam, I think it's Putnam. These are G10, but they're his kind of like scalloped or grooved finish. And I heat anodized the hardware bronze. I've got a Para 3 Lynch clip on there because it fits well and looks great and goes in pocket even better than the factory clip. And yeah, this is just the vanilla S30V Yojimbo 2. But I like this knife. It's one of those knives that it doesn't make it in my pocket all that often, and then every time I do put it in my pocket, I'm like, why don't I carry this knife more? I just love it. A lot of people say that this tip is way too fragile to use this knife as an EDC. This is a knife designed for fighting. Now there's a Yojimbo coming out, which is, side note, very exciting. But yeah, I've used this knife for plenty of EDC tasks, even like piercing through like thick, sturdy cardboard and stuff, and I have not been gentle to this knife, and it's done great for every EDC task I've ever thrown at it. So that's the Yojimbo 2. If you haven't noticed, I love compression locks, and this is a great compression lock Spyderco. Next is my forever Paramilitary 2. This PM2, really jabbed that in there, is the 10V Scorpion PM2 from River's Edge Cutlery. This was their exclusive, and This is the one that the internet asked for. I've got, I think, 2 videos out actually already of this knife, so you'll want to see me talk about this knife in particular, peep those. But long story short, this is the one that I wanted for the longest time. And then as soon as I found out it was actually going to be a reality and they were actually going to make this knife and I could actually buy one, I had decided that it was going to be the one that I actually bought and used and carried and just drove into the ground, for lack of a better term. So I have been using this knife and carrying it a ton ever since the day that I got it, and it is doing awesome. CPM 10V is an incredible blade steel, and it's my favorite steel currently offered on the Paramilitary 2. I can't really think of a steel that I would like better than this for the PM2. I feel like it just suits it so well. I love the Coyote Brown with the black DLC. This thing is just money. I've got an MXG deep carry clip on it, and it's my PM2, like my PM2. I adore this thing. Next, we have the Shaman in Rex 45. This one was the Knife Center exclusive with the rosewood or diamond wood scales that everyone calls the Tree Rex, but I put these Seafoam Tuff scales from Fireside Co. on here. These are very similar to my Micarta. Tuff is a slightly different material, but it feels a little bit lighter and airier and warmer than most Micarta does to me. Has great traction, and because it is Seafoam, I have nicknamed this the Sea Rex instead of the Tree Rex. And this might be getting carried more lately, if I really think about it, than my PM2 even. I love the Shaman as a platform, especially as an outdoor knife. The thickness of the blade stock, the profile of it, the ergos, they're all so good. And then when I've added these Tuff scales on it, I adore this knife so much. I really love my Sea Rex Shaman. Rex 45 is also a killer blade steel. I think for the Shaman, it's just such a great choice. Just like how, yeah, I don't know. I guess if you look at the knives I've already brought out so far, the Yojimbo is a regular vanilla blade steel, but think about my Para 3, my PM2, and this Shaman. For the Para 3, I think Maxima is the best blade steel choice. That knife is like a small EDC folder, and edge retention is what Maxima does best, and it's like, for the Para 3, I feel like it suits it. For the PM2, 10V, I feel like it's a little bit better suited for the size and function of that knife. I use that knife outdoors more than I would with Maxima. To my understanding, 10V is tougher than Maxima is. It's less chippy, stuff like that. And then Rex 45 as like a thick, robust kind of outdoor folder, which is the way I view the Shaman. It's just such a great outdoor steel. Such a good blend of toughness and edge retention. It'll patina really well over time. I'm looking forward to that, although I haven't really tried to like start the patina. Eventually I may be willing to leave this knife a little bit dirtier so that process begins, but I've just kind of been enjoying its pretty satin finish for the meantime. What I'm trying to say is certain blade steels from Spyderco, I feel like suit certain models a little bit better. Man, I'm having trouble talking. Certain blade steels from Spyderco suit certain models better than others. I think that's what I meant to say. Rex 45 is my choice for the Shaman, except for I may want to get one in crew wear or Z wear. Those are essentially identical steels. There is the crew Carta that already came out. Now they're doing a run of those Micarta scales on Z-Wear. I'll probably try to grab one of those because that's also arguably the best steel for my type of use with the Shaman. So that may happen. But Rex 45, I love. I have pretty decent experience with Rex 45, having had it on a Para 3 before. And yeah, so far I'm loving it on here. Anyways, that'll be that on the Shaman. Next we have the Tuff. The Tuff is in 3V blade steel. It's a Taichung frame lock. All of the other models I've talked about so far have been US-made Spydercos. The next two will be Taichung. So we've got a titanium frame lock with a steel hardened insert, a very, very thick stock of CPM 3V, which is a steel focused on toughness. Now, this knife is shaped and ground like a chopper. It's only got 3 inches of sharpened blade steel, but where it puts that sharpened edge, this knife is it is a crazy, different, unique beast of a folder. and it's very, very fun to me to have a knife like this, and it's huge. Lately I've been enjoying big knives out in places like this, so I've been having a lot of fun with this guy. This is just different and fun. So that is the Tuff, and let's see, running out of pockets here. Last but certainly not least, this is my newest addition to the Spyderco family. This is the Danger Banana. The actual name of this is the Subvert. This is designed by Black Snow Customs. His name is Nati, I think. He's an Israeli guy. This is another Tai Chung model. I think you would technically call this a liner lock, although those liners are as thick or thicker than a lot of frame locks are. So it's kind of like a sub frame lock, I guess you could call it, but it's got these G10 scales on top of it. So it is just a beast of a folder. This is, I think, the biggest folder I own right now, even including the Tuff, which is crazy because the Tuff is gigantic. Yeah, maybe they're actually about the same size. I don't know. The Danger Banana feels longer. They both are funky, but this one's a full flat grind. It's S30V blade steel, and it is just obscenely large in a really fun way. Really cool, super unique blade shape. I just picked this up. I just shot my first impressions on this one, but so far I'm having a ton of fun with it. So yeah, this is the Danger Banana, as I and my friends like to call it, and it is super, super cool and super different. So yeah, let's talk about those one more time. We have the Danger Banana. We have the Tuff. That was bad. The Tuff. We have, what did I do next? The Shaman. Trying to go in order of largest to smallest. The Shaman in Rex 45, the C-Rex. We have PM2, 10V, Scorpion PM2 from River's Edge. We have, oh, that's last, the Yojimbo 2, and we have the Maxima pair of 3. So I feel like it's a pretty good mix of Spydercos. I have owned several PM2s. I've owned even more pair of 3s, but these are the two that, after experiencing quite a few, I decided to just land on and be my kind of forever ones. I owned one Shaman before this one. I picked up one right around the same time that I got this one. That one was an M4 DLC coated with the Jade scales, one of the Blade HQ exclusives. I liked this one better, so I kept this one. I threw the scales on this one, and I sold the other one. Yeah, my favorite Spydercos tend to be the American-made Spydercos, the ones that come out of Golden, Colorado. I just love compression locks. I like the way they build knives there. I like the way they finish them. There are subtle differences between each of the factories. I don't think I've ever owned one of the Chinese-made Spydercos, like the Tenacious, etc. But I've handled them plenty of times. I feel like they're, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I'm kind of above that league of knives and the way that I buy and use and collect knives. I just don't have any interest in those kind of lower end models. I haven't had any of the Japanese ones. I've never owned a Endura or a Delica. I don't typically like back blocks, so that kills a lot of those for me. I'm not usually a big fan of FRN scales. I've had a pair of 3 lightweight with FRN that came from the US factory. That was fine, but I like the regular pair of 3 better. But yeah, so I've owned a pretty good, oh, that's a fire ant, that's scary. I've owned a pretty good mix of Spydercos over the last couple of years. My first Spyderco was a pair of 3, and it was the Blurple one with S110V blade steel, and that was a great knife. But I started to chase sprint runs and exclusives after that, and ultimately owned quite a few, and then landed on this, which the Maxima is a production version of the knife. It's just a more expensive production version because it's in Maxima, and they tend to come and go out of inventory places. Sometimes they're hard to find, sometimes they're plentiful. They kind of get released in waves. The Yojimbo 2 is that's the plain Jane vanilla S30V factory version. It's got different scales on it, and I did some stuff to spruce it up. All of my American-made ones have deep carry clips. 3 of them have Lynch, 1 has MXG. Don't necessarily have a preference between the 2 brands. I guess I would say I slightly prefer Lynch, but sometimes it's just when I need a clip, they don't happen to be in stock right that moment, and MXG seems to always have them in stock. But yeah, so this one is an exclusive. It is the exclusive for me. River's Edge Cutlery is right around the corner from dropping their next exclusive PM2. That'll be like the Rec PM2, just like the Rec Para 3 was, but in a PM2. So that's really exciting. I guess I'm gonna have 2 forever PM2s because I have to own that one. But yeah, this one is an exclusive, and it's just the blade steel I would pick. This one, Shaman, is an exclusive, and it's the blade steel I pick for my applications for the knife. And then these two are just really fun Taichung made. Taichung arguably makes the nicest Spydercos, but in my experience, them being nicer doesn't necessarily make them better to use. In fact, these knives are all knives I will use probably more than these knives. Does that mean that these aren't usable or that they won't cut? Absolutely not. The Tuff is crazy thick behind the edge. It won't slice, it'll cut. But yeah, I guess this is kind of a ramble fest, but putting them all kind of in one place and trying to define the way that I like my Spydercos is a hard thing to do because there's a big mix between them. We've got like a small EDC folder. We've got one that I kind of use as a small EDC folder, even though it's kind of a self-defense inspired knife. We've got like the do-it-all, like large EDC or full-size EDC benchmark in the PM2, and in this case it's my favorite version or flavor of it. We've got the Shaman, which is like a beefed up PM2, a lot of people would say. I've done a comparison between these two knives if you feel like watching that. I feel like they suit slightly different purposes, enough so that I love and have a place in my collection for both permanently. I don't feel like either one replaces the other. Yeah, and then there's other ones that are just fun. Like I've had a Paysan, I've had a Drunken, I tried a Positron, which is probably the only Spyderco that I ever like didn't really have click for me, that I just didn't like that much. I've had plenty of Para 3s, several PM2s. What else have I had? I've had a couple of Shamans now. What else have I had from Taichung? I've had a Sage 5. I like the Para 3 and the PM2 better than the Sage 5. I know other people fall on the other side of the fence than that. I don't know. I've just owned quite a few of them, and it's taken a lot of time and experience to get to where the collection is now. Some of these will probably be in my collection forever, i.e. this section. Maybe this one, probably not this one, but maybe I haven't used it and tested it enough yet. But there's the ones that I found that are like my have-to-haves. I'll always have these Spydercos. And then there's a couple others that seem to like come and go. Like the Paysan, I freaking loved. But it's not a knife that I feel like I need to own permanently, because it's not a knife that I'm gonna like really get out and use very often. It's too pretty and eccentric, and it's really fun to experience for a while and try carrying and using a little bit, but I don't need one. These I need. So I don't know how much this makes sense. Some of you guys will probably totally get what I'm trying to say with all this. Other people who don't relate to the way I collect knives are probably going to think I'm a crazy person for the way I've described all of this and the way that these knives work for me and the way I relate to them. But I love Spyderco. It is certainly my favorite production knife brand. Are they my favorite knives that I own? Not really. I think my favorite knife that I own is my Koenig Arius, but that knife is like, it's a different league. This kind of like, let's say this kind of price point for knives being around, like these are both just over 200. This knife was like 170. I think the Yojimbo is around 150, 160-ish. The way they come stock, that's their price point. I've done things to some of them, so say at most I'm in this knife with the scales and the clip for 300. So call it 300 and under. I don't know how concise this is sounding. In this range of like $300 and under production US made knives, Spyderco kills it in my opinion. They are my favorite for a reason. I love using these knives. I love carrying these knives. Are there some eccentricities to them? Absolutely. Are there people who can't stand the PM2 and don't get at all why it has the hype it has? Yeah, but for me, it fits my hand great. It functions amazingly well. I love the blade profile. I haven't had any fragility issues with the tip like a lot of people seem to complain about. They come in the coolest blade steels you can get, and so many options of them. Like maybe another company will run one cool blade steel as a sprint run or an option. But Spyderco uses like every cool blade steel, and on all of their popular models, if you wait long enough, they'll offer it. Like the Shaman was one of my favorite Spydercos for a long time. Just my S30V plain one that I got to try it out. I ended up loving and carrying and using that knife a ton, and it did great in S30V. And then as this knife has gained some popularity, all of a sudden Spyderco's offering it in Rex 45 and Crewwear and S90V and what else is there? 4V, and there's probably at least one other that I'm not thinking of. But there's been a bunch of sprints and exclusives, and there's more even so coming. The PM2 comes in every good blade steel under the sun. The only one that I wish they made that they don't is Van X Super Clean. And there's only one production knife currently being made, to my knowledge, that uses that, and it's kind of a boutique offering. So the fact that Spyderco is as engaged with the community as they are to understand that blade steels and selection and cool colors and configurations are important to a lot of us is just awesome to me. I get that some people really don't like that Spyderco does so many sprints and exclusives, and it's a mad dash to get it, and then there's people scalping on the secondary market who are just bending people over because they happen to get one on the drop because they were there the second that it launched. And then it's a madness sometimes trying to get the exact one you want if you missed it on the drop, and the inflated secondary prices can be annoying if you come in late to the game. But it's also kind of fun that it is kind of a game for certain people. Like for me, it's a bummer when I miss one. 100%. I was bent out of shape when I missed the Rec Para 3. I wanted it so bad. I was ready to check out, and I was right there when it happened, and there was a whole fiasco with the site and all kinds of drama, and I missed it. It didn't happen. And now they go for an obscene amount of money that I would never pay for one. But it's also kind of fun that that exists, and there's a level of collectability to them. And also that Spyderco keeps on doing it. It's not like they had one that was really hard to get and now it's ultra collectible. It's like there's so many more flavors constantly coming out that even to people who are new to collecting Spydercos can join in on the fun and get one that's exclusive and different and a relatively small production number. And yeah, I've probably said plenty about Spyderco here, but my point is that I am obviously a big Spyderco fan. In my knife case, there is no other brand that takes up a whole row of 5. Right now I've got 6, but constantly, seemingly consistently, I always have at least 5 Spydercos in my knife case. And eventually it may be 10. I might have 2 rows, the more that things keep kind of progressing. And but there's a reason why these are my constants. And other brands I might have 2 or 3 of at a given time, but I think Spyderco is the only knife brand that has ever filled a whole row in my knife case. And to me, I constantly notice that, because every morning, lately, sometimes a couple times a day, I'm switching knives. I go to my knife case to grab a different knife and to put it in my pocket, and that top row is always just Spyderco, and it is that way for a reason. So I'm gonna let that be the end of this giant rant slash review kind of thing. If you watched all this, kudos to you. You're great. Appreciate you, because this video is different than I envisioned it going. That'll be that. Thanks, guys.